senior editor at Devindra Hardwar. Today I'm joined with senior writer Sam Rutherford. Hey, Sam.
Hey, how you doing?
And our podcast producer, Ben Ellman. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Hello. Charlene is off this week, and I think maybe next week too. So she's going to have a little time off as she preps for Google I.O. But yeah, we've got a couple things to chat about. Hello to everybody in the chat room. I see Freddie with 1D. I see George Morgan, Harsh Jadav. I see Sam there too. This is weird. Okay.
Gotta get in early and welcome the fans.
Welcome to fans, Lord Buckethead.
Lord Buckethead says hello from the Republic of Non-Gamers.
It's true. I think ASUS may need to start rethinking that whole Republic of Gamers brand. It's weird. It's a little weird.
So as I understand it, ROG was like its own company that they like bought or something, and so they still want to like use the branding.
I don't even remember.
I'm not entirely sure about that. I think it's just something they made up like 5 or 6 years ago.
It sounds like a bad branding name, but you know what? I'm not sure myself. We'll have to look this up. I've just been like I don't know about you, Sam. I've been to the ASUS headquarters in Taiwan and everything, and they have the whole setup there for ROG, and they need a better name. They need something.
I mean, like they can just delete the letters and nothing will change. But
make it
I don't know.
Yeah. Hello, Republic of Gamers. Hello, Declan Flynn and Cud, an official JNG. We have a couple of things to talk about. We'll be talking about the ROG Ally. We'll be talking about Tears of the Kingdom, which I'm so jealous, Sam, that you had some time with it. And
I all I wanted to do was play more. Like they were like shooing people out. It's like you must leave because we have more people to come in and do hands-ons. Like, I don't want to.
Let's frame like what that experience was like too, because I feel like every time I go to a Nintendo meeting or preview, it is a very weird thing. It's like maybe unless you meet with Apple, like I don't feel like there are any other companies that are as controlled or as but we'll dive into
I'll definitely get into some of that.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you're joining us for the first time, we'll be recording the audio podcast. Ben will be keeping an eye on some chat comments, but we don't directly engage with the chat typically until some Q&A section. So sit tight.
User CUD or CUD just said, I read it as ROG.
It is ROG, yeah.
But like that strikes me as something that would... I mean, yes, what does ROG mean? But also that strikes me as something that would cause so many middle school arguments. Yeah. Like, oh, I got the new ROG phone, and some other kid is like, oh, you're so dumb. It's ROG. It's Republic of Gamers. But then again, maybe my understanding of what middle school arguments these days is stuck in the fact that we barely had Google when I was in middle school.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the arguments now take place on TikTok comments, so it won't be in real life. We're waiting for a really good, like, I don't think any of the laptop brands have good things. Like, what is Acer has like Triton and things like that.
Predator's all right from Acer.
Predator's good.
Lenovo Legion, at least there's a little bit of alliteration that kind of works.
It should be like Asus Axe or something strong. Man, awesome, extreme. All right, folks, let's dive into the show. Are we recording?
Well, yeah, Zoom recording,
and also local recording for you, Ben.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll turn on my local recording when I need to.
Yeah. I may shout you out earlier, Ben. So
okay.
Just a heads up.
No, I'll start it then.
Up. And original sound is on. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us.
This is what our listeners get for listening to.
While you're here, please, if you came here through the tweet, retweet the tweet. Give us a thumbs up on this YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And
so, the last thing that we're going to do before we actually get into the episode is we're going to do a sync. If you've been in the chat before, you know what's going to happen. If you're new, I'm going to count down from 3. At the end of 3, everybody on stream is going to like clap or snap their fingers. Then we're going to be quiet for just a little bit. It helps me with audio editing, I promise. But if you want to be cool, you can put clap emojis, or is there a snap finger emoji in the chat along with us?
To be.
I know that there is this emoji, like this big.
I care this much.
Yeah, I care this much. I use that one all the time. But okay, so let's count down from 3, 2, 1. Okay, and some silence. I'll let you know when the silence is over. Okay, silence over. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I like the Democracy of Gamers potential name, although I don't know. Yeah.
Dog is just, it's just something,
Just
it rolls right off the tongue.
I also feel like that's just Reddit, PC Master Race subreddit, which is also a
yeah.
brand we should get rid of. So please.
Yeah, seriously. And
Yeah.
I don't know if Yahtzee, who is by all
He's still
accounts,
around?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's still doing zero punctuation videos, but by all accounts, I don't know if by all accounts, he's a decent person,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
seems.
yeah.
And I don't know if he's ever reckoned with the fact that he pretty much coined the idea of the PC master race.
Yeah, that sounds like a thing
I
he
feel
would've
like
said.
it was, but like he said it like sarcastically
Yeah,
and like in his way, and then people just ran with it. So it's like,
I think people assume it's sarcastic, but then I see a lot of bros taking it a little seriously. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm all Donkey now. Donkey is my video game commentary guy at this point. Okay.
I'm so surprised that Donkey is not from the New York area because he
He's
sounds like he's
yeah.
from the New York area,
Pure-
but he's like
pure old
from
school
Minnesota
Brooklyn
or
vibes.
something.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll talk with him about his games that he's publishing soon. So that's a
Honestly, yeah, that would be really cool.
All right, let's dive into it, folks. Sit tight. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, Internet, and welcome back to the Engadget Podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devendra Hardawar. Sherlyn is off this week, but I'm joined with Senior Writer Sam Rutherford. Hey, Sam.
hey, how you doing?
Doing well. And Sam, I'm so jealous of all the fun things you've had time with over the past week. You have had some hands-on time with the ASUS ROG Ally. That's their new Steam Deck competitor that seems super cool. And you've had time with The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. So I see you. You're just like you're I don't know what's the word? You're buzzing. You're buzzing with all the cool stuff you got to
Yeah,
see.
I mean, I kind of hinted at this last week. Like, this is like there's some stuff I want to talk about, but I couldn't say anything yet. And now the embargo's up. We have coverage on the site, and there's a video on YouTube if you want to check out the ROG Ally.
Cool.
So
let's do the intro, and then I will dive back to you.
Oh,
okay?
sure.
As always, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to us on it. As always, folks, if you're enjoying this show, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. Drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com. And you know what? That inbox is a little empty. I would love to see some questions and comments and feedback from people. So if you want us to answer your question live on air, there's not much of a line. So drop us anything. We'll do some research for you, and we'll talk about it on the show. And as always, you can join us Thursday mornings, typically around 10:30 a.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel for our live stream, where we record the show, we do some Q&A with the audience, and sometimes we even show off gadgets. Now, one gadget I wish we could show off, Sam, is the ROG Ally. You had some time with it, and you seem pretty positive from your preview so far. You called it the most powerful handheld gaming PC yet. First of all, what is this thing, and how does it compare to the Steam Deck?
Yeah, and so this is basically Asus's take on a Steam Deck, but a much more premium version. So it's still, handheld gaming PC, and you have built-in controls and, paddles and back. But the big difference is, number one, that it runs Windows. And Asus said this was a very deliberate decision because they want the Ally to be able to play games from all of the big stores, Steam, Epic Games Store, EA Play, what have you. And then the thing that kind of surprised me a little bit is that it features AMD's new Z1 chip,
right,
which is created by AMD specifically for PC gaming handhelds.
They didn't. They announced it the day these hands-ups went on. So this is a whole new chip from AMD, the Ryzen Z1, and there's an even faster one, right? The Z1 Extreme or something. Yeah.
Right, and Asus, hasn't revealed full details about it. So it looks like there may be a couple different SKUs. That one has like this base Z1, and there might be one with the Z1 Extreme. But on a performance level, Asus was claiming it'll be 50% more powerful at 15-watt TDP, and it'll be twice as powerful at 30 to 35-watt TDP. And so that's a pretty big jump up over the Steam Deck.
Wow.
And then on top of that, it has a much nicer screen. It might be even an overkill screen, depending on how that performance actually pans out.
7-inch, 120 hertz on a mobile thing, and it's 1080p. It's not 720 like I believe the Steam Deck is, right? So
yep.
Wow. Okay.
And even the Asus said they've been working on this thing for 5 years, and it kind of shows because they really paid attention to a lot of the details. Because they even focused on some of the fans. and anyone who owns a Steam Deck, especially one with the I think it's the Delta fan, it just has a whine to it that like you can't fully get away from. And the RG Ally is surprisingly quiet. I was kind of shocked by it. That said, I have a couple concerns because we're talking about a much more powerful chip, a much higher res, brighter screen, and it has the same size battery as the Steam Deck, and that is a little bit concerning just from like a portability,
an hour
longevity.
Play, maybe with this thing, yeah.
And it still gets hot and it gets a little bit sweaty, but it has all the main things. The only thing it doesn't really have is compared to like some other rivals like the Aya Neo 2 is that it doesn't have those Hall effect sensors for the joystick, so it's not magnetic. It's more of your standard analog joystick, which is totally fine.
It's fine, but those could drift eventually, right?
Right. ASUS has hinted, and they haven't really said anything, concrete yet. But it may be possible to replace those with third-party options down the line. So we're waiting to see, kind of more about this. And especially, obviously, the big thing they haven't said yet is price. There's going to be a full official launch on May 11th, and that's when we're going to hear about the pricing and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But
looking at the specs, Sam, like what would you guess? I would guess starting $700 to $800.
Yeah, I'm really thinking about the $800 range. There have been some rumors that it might be $600. I find that kind of might be a stretch. But even at $800, if it's twice as powerful as a Steam Deck and it's twice the price, I don't, that seems about right.
That's not, that is the price of a budget gaming laptop. So something like Dell's G series, which we've talked about and we've recommended in our guides, those typically start at $800, $900, and you get faster hardware, but it's a laptop, right? You have to walk around with it. You can't just have it in your hand and play games as easily as this.
Yeah. And obviously with those two different Z1 SKUs, there is a little bit of wiggle room. So you could have like maybe a base model at 700 and then like a more premium one at 900, 800, maybe 1,000. And I could definitely see that.
I could see them going higher. Like, I think what we have learned with the appetite of gamers recently is the consoles have gotten more expensive. PC GPUs have gotten crazy expensive, and people are still fighting tooth and nail to get a 4080 and a 4090. So I could totally see that extreme chip being like, you want the creme de la creme, pay $1,200, or potentially even more. That Aya Neo, the 2 you tested, Sam, isn't that already like close to $1,000 and over?
Yep. And that starts at like, I think it's like $800, $900 for the base model, but for the one you want, you're looking at $1,000. And actually, I think it's good that you mentioned it because I really think that the RG Ally is really sort of a better version of the Ionia 2, just because it has a updated processor, but it has the same basic design. But it's from a much bigger company, so you get that, advantages of like economy of scale. And I'm really hoping that like ASUS has, better support than the Aya Neo 2, which is kind of like you buy it and it's like, okay, now you can tinker with it, but you're totally on your own.
My worry with a lot of these things is like, do I buy something from a random company, from China or somewhere where I don't know about their quality. I don't know about their customer service. Once you spend more than $500 on something, I'm like, I really would like legit support.
Right. And like on the Aya Neo 2, like it has like a product manual like downloaded onto the device, but when I opened it up, it was all in Chinese. So it's like, oh, okay, you did something, but like if I have to translate it on my own, that's not really all that helpful.
Yep. Exactly. I see people joking, like George Morgan in the chat room saying if it's running Windows, that's probably enough to kill the battery. Hey, sure. Yeah, that's true. But I think the real joy here is the thing I'm kind of annoyed with the Steam Deck is that you can't really get out of Steam easily, right? You can launch a web browser, you can get to some game streaming services, but it's a little bit of work to add like Xbox Game Pass streaming to the Steam Deck because you have to go into the browser and add a shortcut and a whole bunch of things. You don't have access to the other app stores. I do feel like we kind of want these things to run Windows. I wonder if Microsoft is doing anything to just like give us a slightly slimmer version of Windows that is just purely meant for these games. I feel like, I don't know, that would be
there was a demo recently where Microsoft showed off like a version of Windows that's tweaked so that it would be better for handheld gaming PCs with like kind of an updated, more friendly UI. And so hopefully that comes about. I know a lot of people thought it was like, oh, this is going to be like Windows 12. Like, no, that's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. Another thing, we previewed Dell had like a a weird concept device, the Alienware UFO.
Yeah, Project UFO, I think.
Project UFO a couple of years ago. We haven't seen the handheld again recently. I think they just kind of given up on that. But this kind of looks a little like that, but maybe more.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, just because it's like Dell showed that thing off in I think 2020, and it's like suddenly between like obviously the Steam Deck last year, and then like the stuff like the Ioneo 2, the Win, the GPD Win 4, and then now the ROG Ally. It's kind of like the year of the handheld gaming PC, and it's like Dell was like out in front showing people like what they want to do, and like they never like made anything that we could buy. So it's like kind of weird to like see that missing.
That is the point of concept devices, right? To be early to a thing, but also that should lead to something. Also at CES, we saw Dell's like the UFO concept controller too, which is I hated that thing. You could go read my coverage about that, but it was just like this weirdly like misshapen and just like seemingly ill-informed controller from Dell.
And it goes off on a weird tangent that I'm not sure people really want, especially like given all the recent development for handhelds.
For sure. So what? Honestly, Sam, like I feel like the pitch of the Steam Deck wasn't really clear to me until I picked one up. Like they were easy to buy, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll check this out. And I like it because I can do PC gaming stuff. I get my whole Steam library anywhere, but anywhere in my home. I don't really take it anywhere beyond that. Do you think that is a good pitch for a lot of consumers, like just being able to get your whole PC gaming library in bed or on the couch or something?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like for me, once I had a kid, like I was not able to sit at a desk as much anymore, and so being able to like sit on the couch with my wife and like have the kid roaming around, it's actually like it sounds like a small thing, but it makes a big impact on the way I play games. And so being able to have a handheld device that I can like take from room to room with me actually is really, really nice.
There's a good piece from Sean Buckley at Engadget who wrote about the Steam Deck bringing PC gaming back into his life after he had a kid. And it's the same thing. It is
totally
PC gaming. The beauty of it is you have the full power of your PC. You could store a ton of games, but you typically have to sit at a desk and in front of a monitor. The Steam Deck just kind of takes that anywhere, and I feel like that is the big draw for a lot of these things too.
Yeah, and as I'm getting older and like more nostalgic and playing more retro games, it's like I don't care as much about the performance, and it's like just nice having something that like can theoretically play everything. But I can still bring it around.
It's kind of funny. I've definitely spent more time playing Vampire Survivors than anything else on my Steam Deck, and I spent way too much money on that thing to play a $3, tiny game using not even 16-bit graphics, to be honest, like just really old school stuff. So Sam, just what are your takeaway thoughts from this? Are you excited to see and review this thing? How do you feel about like all the different components of the hardware? Because I think the D-pad looks like 4 buttons, but like on a circular pad. Like how does all that feel to you?
Yeah. So it's interesting because this thing is actually significantly smaller and thinner than the Steam Deck, and that's has its pros and cons because you don't get those big grips, so it's not quite as comfortable. But Asus has like designed it so that if you're like resting it with your hands on a table, it's it actually kind of works in that situation. But I mean, in general, like I can't wait to check it out. There's some things that I'm not too sure about. Like Asus includes support for the XG mobile port, so you can connect one of its big docks, and it's like.
And you say a port. I've seen this thing, and I'm looking at your screenshot, looking at your photos now. It is like a USB-C port plus like a big port.
Yeah, right it's a socket. Big. It's like a fire hose of a port. Yeah. And so theoretically, you could connect one of their external GPU docks to the ROG Ally, and you can get way better performance. But, then we're talking, you might as well have a laptop at that point.
You might as well have a laptop. And I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to often stream games in their homes remotely from their gaming PCs to their handheld. So you get the better performance of your gaming PC, but, you could take it anywhere. So I feel like, I don't know if anybody's going to do this. That big cable, man, that big cable that they have for their external GPUs just... It looks like something that will break instantly. Like that thing falls once, and those giant ports will just snap off. So
yeah. I'm kind of like curious to see if anyone's gonna buy this and like buy this instead of like a laptop, and then like they just have like their home desktop setup, and then instead of having a box, like everything is powered by the ROG Ally. I'm curious to see if like how many people are gonna do that, because theoretically it's possible.
You could dock it. You could plug in monitors and something. I'm wondering, like, it seems more like maybe people would have this as their gaming system type of thing, and then
Hmm.
have a MacBook Air or something on the side, like have something
Yep.
lighter and more nimble that they would actually use for productivity and work, right?
Yeah, totally. It's good that you mentioned the D-pad. I'm personally not a fan of the D-pad. I like
Yeah.
a traditional cross style D-pad, or even like the Sony's like arrow shaped D-pads,
Mm-hmm.
much better. But that said, the screen is such an improvement over the Steam Deck. I can't like this is what I've wanted on
Mm-hmm.
a handheld like gaming PC for such a long time. I don't even really care about necessarily the 120 hertz because like I'm not expecting that thing to be able to
Yeah.
support 120 FPS on most games, especially more modern stuff.
Maybe scale down Overwatch or something could hit.
Yeah, or
that, yeah.
maybe there's a chance that like ASUS supports like black frame insertion,
Mhm.
which will make things look a lot clearer, and then
Mhm.
you still get the advantage of that 120 hertz, but you don't have to worry about pushing a full 120 FPS all the
Mhm.
time. But I think really think this thing has a lot of potential, and the Steam Deck is great because it's very affordable and it kind of runs everything, and it's like for those who are tied into the Steam OS or Steam ecosystem, it's
Mhm.
a great device for that. But I think there's a lot of room in the ecosystem or in the marketplace for a more premium version of that, especially something that runs Windows. And so I'm really excited to check this thing out.
Cool. And the official launch is what, May 11th, and we'll probably see a review sometime around then, right?
Yep, yep. Hopefully, sometime in May, but as soon as we get it in, we'll have it out for you.
Cannot wait to see more of this. And also, speaking of gaming stuff, Sam, you spent time with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at a preview event. You guys can go read our coverage of that. I don't know if you have video, but you have a lot of pictures and things from that. Can you set
Yeah.
the stage, by the way? Because I feel like people aren't always clear about like what a Nintendo event is like. And their preview events to me always feel very like orchestrated and very controlled in a very Apple-like way. What was it like going there? And before you even got to the game, like just describe what you saw.
Yeah, you're kind of spot on because like they a lot of times Nintendo like they want people to experience the game in the way they want
Yeah,
it to
it's very
happen.
Disney too. It's very like you're entering the Nintendo zone, and you have these great helpers to guide you
Yeah, yeah,
along the way.
and there's
Yeah.
some hand holding, and I
Mhm.
actually appreciate it. So, I went to an event space in New York City where they had a whole bunch of systems and TVs set up for demos, and I had about 75 minutes to 90 minutes or so to play with the game. But before I even got to touch it, they had like a 10 to 15 minute explainer about the new abilities, and that it was like a little bit frustrating. But then like once I was like learning about it, I really understood why they needed to do that because especially Ultra Hand, it's a really in-depth mechanic. So
This
Ultra
game seems
Hand,
like a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on.
yeah, yeah. So Ultra Hand is basically, Link's version of like a power glove, and it allows him to pick up items, kind of build them like Lego style, like smash them together, and you can create all sorts of vehicles and stuff like that. But it's also pretty in-depth because you can pick items up. You have to rotate them just right. You have to attach them just right. And then like if you attach it wrong, you have to like pick it up and you can shake the controller to like unattach something. So there is like a lot of like mechanics that like I'm sure that you'll pick up more naturally as like you play the game. But like for someone going in with a demo, as like I have a certain amount of time to see this stuff,
Mhm.
it would actually really help to have that demo. And then so after they ran through the general explainer about stuff like that, they sent me in like a small like kind of play world area where I was like running through a goblin camp, and then I had to go and traverse some of the sky islands. And so I'm really getting a chance to like test out a lot of the new abilities. And
Mhm.
so the four main ones are Ascend, Recall, Fuse, and Ultra Hand. And Ascend is pretty basic. It just lets you kind of swim through solid objects, but you can only swim upwards, and it has to be through a ceiling. So it doesn't work if you're just running around outside, but if you're in a cave,
Yeah.
it works, or if you're in a building, it works.
I'm very confused by that particular. It almost seems like people we see on YouTube, like people love to like stress the mechanics and the physics of the original game, of Breath of the Wild, and
Mhm.
it almost seems like, man, people are clipping through things. People are clipping through,
Yeah, yeah.
buildings and houses.
It's almost like a dev tool that
Yeah.
they made real.
Yeah.
But I think there's because Tears of the Kingdom has the same basic map as Breath of the Wild, except there are they've altered a lot of the places just due to time and location for the story. But there's also a ton of new sky islands, and so Ascend is really like kind of a simple tool to help you gain elevation, which you really need to be able to get to those different Sky Islands.
Rather than like using your stamina meter and slowly like climbing up a mountain or something.
Yeah.
Does Ascend use stamina? Like, how is there a limit to like how far and how long you can go?
It was hard to tell from the thing, from the gameplay demo, that if stamina was actually tied to it. I'm not sure actually.
Okay, gotcha. There's also the one Recall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is another just sort of like, this is a very Nintendo thing. This is a very Nintendo mechanic, like the mechanic of diving into warp pipes or something, which blew my mind when I was 5 years old. This is like, so something can be rewound back in time. A specific object can. If you see something fall from the sky, you could hop on it and rewind it back in time up. How did you use that mechanic? Because it's just wild.
Yeah, so there's actually two different like main uses for that thing. One is for like, I talk about it in the hands-on where like, I was in the Goblin camp and they rolled the giant spiky ball at me. I'm like, okay, well, this is obviously bad. Like, I don't want to be Indian, Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. So, but it's in that situation, you can use Recall and you can send the spiky ball back where it came from, which is just like, okay, I'm going to go bowling for goblins now. And so you just like, you see them just like the ball hits and they just go flying everywhere. And it's awesome. But also, you can use it as another movement ability, because a lot of times on the Skylands, they'll have boulders and stuff falling down from the Skylands.
Right.
So once the boulder lands, you can jump on top of it, hit Recall, and you just go teleporting straight up into the sky. And it's actually like, it's really interesting how it has that kind of duality to it, because, you kind of think it's like, oh man, and it just gets you thinking about like all the different ways you can use it.
It's just, I cannot wait to see how people test and stress the limits of this game, because it seems like that's what Nintendo has really been paying attention to, is like how people play with everything they gave people in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, you saw all those like old viral clips of like, people like using magnesis to like send things like a million miles into the air, or using stasis to like freeze things.
So people are making like air rafts and stuff using the magnet stuff, and now you could just do that because you could just build something.
I have to imagine Nintendo saw what people were doing in Breath of the Wild and be like, let's support that, like foster that, and give them even more tools to like really reinforce that sandbox nature of the game. Which kind of brings us to the next two abilities, which I think are the most fun, and everyone's going to be talking about these, which is Fusion and Ultra Hand. So Fusion lets you combine pretty much any two items. So like you can even do like food items, but like all sorts of stuff like fronds, leaves, crystals, bombs, like all the sorts of stuff that like enemies drop when they die, with any one of your weapons. And so like right after I killed the goblins with the spiky ball, they dropped some of their horns, and I refused that to a stick and made a spear. And I was like, this is awesome, because not only do I have a ton of reach, but like depending on like the strength of the goblin you killed, the spear will be stronger.
And also like before in Breath of the Wild, like you would collect a lot of the things like goblin things and other objects, but you sell it maybe you
didn't really have it like a lot of reason to use it.
That's really interesting. I wonder what the like matrix of building things looks like, because it sounds like when they started talking about it, it sounded like you could basically put any two items together, and they have come up with a way to use them.
Right, and so it's important to like mention that it's only one item with one other item. You can't like make an item and then add another item to that, and then add another item. So there is a limit, but like even like with what they have now, it's like it just feels crazy. Like you can fuse like one of the eyeballs that the bats drop, and then you can make a homing arrow if you attach that to your bow.
That's pure Nintendo logic. You have an eye, you have an arrow, stick it and see what happens. Yeah,
and then like I put a bomb on my shield, and then I was using my shield to deflect things, and then like some enemy came up and hit me, and then exploded. I didn't take any damage, but they got the full force of the bomb in their face, and it's like, oh, this is awesome.
It's putting like dynamite to the front of your shield, basically.
And there's like all sorts of wacky, silly combinations. Like I made like a giant like fan on the end of a stick, and I was just like beating people with like the wind, not even with the fan itself. And it's like, okay, this is unbelievably silly, but like I'm totally here for it.
How did the game look? Because I feel like another controversy right now is that the Switch is getting old. The Switch is pretty old, because both Sony and Microsoft are on their next generation of hardware. The Switch is running old, like very old NVIDIA Tegra hardware. Does it feel good to you?
I mean, it feels responsive, but it looks more or less the same as the previous. There's, been a couple like aesthetic tweaks for the new game, but it's pretty much the same, Breath of the Wild graphics that you know and love. And, in some respects, it's a little disappointing, but like I get it, not only because the limitations of the Switch, but I think the Breath of the Wild style has aged pretty well, and so it still looks good today because they took a more, artistic approach to it instead of like, let's do a hyper realistic like Call of Duty style graphics.
Gotcha. Well, any major takeaway, Sam? Like, I think we're all excited for this. I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. You're not reviewing it, right? I'm sorry.
No, because it comes out the same day as like pretty much Google I/O. So someone else on staff is gonna be reviewing it. So pay attention to that. We will have all your coverage for you. But just like I really like how they're diving into that sandbox nature of the game. And like Ultra Hand, I spent 10 minutes building this like war wagon with flamethrowers on front and like, all that stuff. And then I drove it through some grass and I forgot that the war wagon was made of wood and the grass caught on fire, and then my entire war wagon caught on fire. So like I was like 10 minutes out, and like
Makes
it's
sense.
funny because like Nintendo's handlers were like, they have people from the treehouse there watching you and like kind of answering some of your questions, and they were just laughing at me like when I was doing this. And I was like, so I felt kind of embarrassed, but also it's like I had so much fun doing it. I was like, I would totally do like, make something and have it fall apart again. And I think that was like my real takeaway, is that like the process is just so fun to do that even if you mess up, it doesn't matter because you're having a great time.
I really wonder like the scale and size of things that people are going to be building, and how people just like basically hack through the rules of the game, because we've already seen with Breath of the Wild, like people will just come in, like jump off from the introduction area and go straight to fighting Ganon or something. There are ways to do it. So
and like I got a chance to like make a plane, like kind of glide that around the skies, but like I'm thinking like people are gonna make helicopters and like straight up like aircraft carriers and like airships. It's gonna be wild.
It's wild. Another feature I saw people talk about, I forgot if you wrote about this, but there is a thing you could just like drop, right? Like a tablet you can drop to a space and go back to it. So that also really opens up the thing of like, okay, I'm going to drop this tablet here on an island. I'm going to try to make it to another one. And if I fail, I can still recall myself back to that. That
was super important, just because like you're always at risk of falling off one of those sky islands. And you'd like, even though it is fun to like, remake your vehicles and stuff, sometimes you don't want to like waste 20 minutes getting back to the thing. So if you fall off, you can just teleport right back, and that's super convenient. It's a really nice quality of life feature that they're adding for this game.
That's super cool. Has Nintendo done anything for people who are afraid of heights? Because one thing we talked about, or we noticed with the Horizon DLC, is that there is a thing for people who are afraid of being underwater, and like that is potential fear for them. This game seems like it will tap into a lot of our concerns about going really, really high up and falling all the way down, because all of that is just game world now, right?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is that you have your glider like available to you all the time. So if you ever fall off, you can just press a button and suddenly you're like gliding around. And so I didn't really have that fear. It was more of just like I'm flying this like wackadoodle creation and I'm like completely out of control. I'm trying to like jump to the Sky Island and I'm like, don't know if I'm gonna make it. That was my fear. It's like constantly like a lot of times I was like feeling out of control in like a fun way.
That's super cool. I can imagine this mechanic eventually in some sort of VR game. Like to me, that would be the really cool thing of just like jumping from island to island in true platforming in VR. And then you definitely need some sort of like height awareness for people. But yeah, anything else you want to add about Zelda, Sam?
The one thing I should mention is that they didn't talk about the story at all, because that wasn't part of the demo. But even just based on like some of the previous gameplay stuff and teasers that they've talked about, it's nice having Ganon be more of an active antagonist.
Right.
And so I'm looking forward to that in terms of like how that will eventually like tie into to the story.
For sure. I'm more interested in like how, first of all, it is direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, so we're going to see how that works. But I kind of want to see how this all ties into the broader Zelda mythology, because like getting the timeline together and seeing it all laid out is kind of fun. What was it? The cell shaded game is like potentially
Wind Waker.
Wind Waker is like a potentially post-apocalyptic future where the world has flooded and everything has happened long before. Man, all the Zelda talk. I know there are Wind Waker. There are ways to play Wind Waker on your PC in very, very high resolutions. I kind of want to do that right now.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like talked about is like, even for Nintendo, like obviously Nintendo has made a ton of great games throughout the years, but like trying to make a follow-up to the Breath of the Wild seems really hard. And like, I'm almost wondering if it's going to be like a Majora's Mask situation where, that was pretty much a direct follow-up to Ocarina of Time. And it was really divisive for a couple different reasons. And so I'm curious to see what the kind of reception is to Tears of the Kingdom. are people going to love it in the same way that they love Breath of the Wild, or is it going to be a little bit more divisive like Majora's Mask was?
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Sam. Where can people find your work online these days?
You can always hit me up on social media at Sam Rutherford on Twitter, and as always on Engadget.com.
Cool. Thank you. Do you want to stick around for some Q&A, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can do some Q&A, and then you can get to other news if you want.
Hello, people. Mark Dell's asking, does it support Labo VR?
They have made no mention of that.
Labo. I feel like Nintendo has completely forgotten about Labo. I've spent 20 hours of my life putting all the Labo things together and recording it.
If it does, it's not going to be until way later. Because the same thing happened with Breath of the Wild. They didn't add Labo VR support until like years after the game came out.
There's so much to do. Let me see here.
There are so many things that tech companies will say are really cool and then like completely forget about. But somehow I think Nintendo is a little bit more benevolent about it.
Sure.
Like,
I think they're like, this is a thing you guys will play for a year, maybe, or a couple of months, and then that's it.
It might be that's why everything was made out of cardboard instead of like making you buy like plastic molded kind of things.
For sure.
Thinking like they might have even had like internal conversations about, climate change or whatever, and thinking like, okay, if kids are going to destroy this, why not make it out of something destroyable?
Labo always felt like going back to Nintendo's OG-ness, like Nintendo as a trading card company, Nintendo as a company making cool little toys for kids. Like it was a good way for them to combine what they used to do and games.
Yeah, and there is going to be amiibo support for people who care about that. I'm not sure what the level.
Another thing that it seems like Nintendo forgot.
Yeah. So they didn't completely forget about it, but I wouldn't go out and buy a bunch of amiibos expecting it to like change your gameplay experience.
I have seen people hack amiibos. Like it's not that difficult because all you need are some like read-writable like NFC cards.
Yeah. Totally doable. I'm wondering how this game will play on a launch edition Switch. Like somebody who has had that thing with that poor battery.
I'm gonna find out because I have a launch edition Switch, and it's still going strong. Well, relatively strong.
So last year I made a few mistakes. I both bought the Analog Pocket, which finally appeared. I bought the Steam Deck, and I bought the Switch OLED.
I've been trying to hold off. I'm like resisting. I want it, but like I really want whatever the next gen Switch thing is, and I'm trying to hold out for that.
If you're not using your Analog Pocket, you can always mail it to me.
It just makes a nice little like centerpiece. It makes like a nice little piece of.
Oh yeah, I mean it looks really good on a shelf, but
looks
maybe
good on a shelf. A lot of good like emulation stuff on that, but. Yeah, Sam, I feel like a lot of people are going to see what are going to happen with older Switches. I will say the OLED one, if you were a Nintendo head, if you just want the picture perfect pixels, like, man.
The screen on that thing is awesome.
It's so good. Yeah.
Oh, and you were saying Analog Pocket. I was thinking Playdate. That's how good it's been for fun little handhelds in the last like year and a half.
Yeah. The Analog Pocket has more cores now, and people can put on ROMs that you legally own. So that is a fun way to dive into that.
Mark Dell says Flipper Zero is a great amiibo, which makes so much sense. But it's also reminds me of all the comments that I ever see on any Flipper TikToks, which is Flipper owners try to do something legal challenge : impossible.
Wow, Mark Dell mentioned he has the Ionio Lite, the Ionio 2, and the GPD Win 4. That's a lot of gaming PC handhelds.
Oh man, so good. When do you think the next Switch hardware is? Like at this point, Sam, like it's next year. It
has to be next year because if it was going to come out this year, Nintendo would have said something already.
That's true. I could see them doing next year, and then Zelda will just look really nice on that.
My original timeline is I thought that they were going to release the Switch 2 or Switch Pro, whatever it's called, to go along with Tears of the Kingdom because that's what they did for the original Switch launch. Yeah. And then so now we're getting Tears and no new Switch, which is a little bit of a bummer.
And I do feel like there were so many rumors about a Switch Pro that the OLED was supposed to be. I would put money that they had planned for like a CPU bump or something on that, and that just didn't work out. Yeah. Man.
Maybe it could have been like tied to battery life or something. Like they couldn't
just
get
in
the
general, it was
battery to
hard to
last
build.
long enough.
It was hard to build things, and Nintendo makes things at scale,
Mm-hmm.
much more so than a lot of companies.
And it'll be interesting to see going forward, like what chip Nintendo goes with to power whatever successor comes out. Because it feels like they have more choice now than they might have had like 2 or 3 years ago. So it'll be interesting.
Very cool. All right, I think we can move on. Any other questions, chat? Otherwise, we could let you go, Sam, and just shoot Ben your audio, and we'll dive into some news, folks.
Yeah, sorry I can't stay longer. I can already
good.
feel my like tongue swelling
It's
up.
all good. Yeah.
Oh,
All
are
right.
you sick also?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Good
But
luck,
luckily, through the magic of virtualness, I don't have to infect anyone else.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
no,
Sam has gotten sick because of his kid. True for all of us. True for all parents. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Shoot Ben your audio, Sam. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Later.
See you later.
All right. I will intro you, Ben.
Okay.
And we will dive into news. Let's do this. Sit tight, folks. Let's move on to some other news. And joining me, because I asked around in Engadget and everybody's crazy busy, is our podcast producer, Ben Ellman. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Hello.
I love to be your first string pick.
Yeah, it's great. I always have Ben. Like, I can always rely on Ben in the background when everybody's busy. It's a busy time too. So we've got a couple of stories, and last week we talked about, basically minutes before we went live, SpaceX's Starship rocket blasted off. It certainly got off the ground and got into the air, and then it had unscheduled disassembly or something.
Spontaneous
disassembly in the air. It exploded. SpaceX people were clapping when that happened, and the optics of that were all just very weird. And I saw a lot of like space reporters pointing out, like, yes, this looks bad. This does look bad. We do learn a lot from a launch actually getting off the ground. So in certain respects, it was a success. In many ways, though, it seems like it was not a success for SpaceX, because we learned a couple days later that the FAA has basically grounded the Starship for an indefinite period of time as they investigate the actual launch. Because what happened there is we learned the launch pad itself was destroyed. Debris blew far away, like 6 miles away from the launch pad. There was footage of a minivan, I believe, that was not very close, but close enough to get damaged by debris. And there's like a rain of particulate matter that has basically fallen on the towns around them, around the launch. And we don't know what that means for the humans there. We don't know what that means for the animals or any potential crops or anything in that area. Seems like a mess, right, Ben?
Yeah, mentioning the minivan just reminds me of those farmers insurance commercials that we see in the US, where they talk about like all of the outlier cases that they've had. And so, man, they will know a thing or two because they've seen one more thing where they're going to have to cover someone getting their roof caved in.
You live near a rocket launch site, you never know what can happen.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it would affect like insurance premiums or something. This is just like such a black swan
Is
event.
Is it an act of God, though?
It's very, very strange. And so I don't think that, like, if you're living in the area around like Cape Canaveral or wherever SpaceX's Starbase is that what they call it? I don't know if you'd pay more, but like you just have to pay that out because it's such a strange thing that no one expected to happen.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Another thing that I think people are pointing out is this thing launched without flame trenches, which is something that would like direct the force of the actual launch away from the launch pad. And this is a big rocket, so this is a ton of force. This is something we've never launched anything this big before.
Yeah,
people are pointing to tweets from Elon Musk, what was it, last year, just saying, what if we don't have flame trenches on the Starship?
Yeah, I was reading about this last night, and so like I saw a little bit of like claptrap, like unconfirmed reports that people were saying, you know, we really need flame trenches, or let's be more clear with this. Engineers at SpaceX may have said that we need flame trenches. That is unconfirmed, but the most confirmed thing I saw was from a space.com story that said that usually rockets of this size have flame trenches, yes, to direct the force. And we have to really focus on how powerful this rocket is. One, it's the tallest thing that has ever been even attempted to launch to space. And two, it's twice the power of the thrust that powered the moon missions. So this is just like a ridiculous amount of force. And the idea that you weren't going to use flame trenches or can you confirm this for me? Like Elon said something about like a big like piece of metal or something that was water cooled and it was like going to dampen the force or something.
He was saying he was responding to Eric Berger at SciGuy Space on Twitter. Here's the Elon tweet. He said, 3 months ago, we started building a massive water-cooled steel plate to go under the launch mount. It wasn't ready in time, and we wrongly thought, based on static fire data, that happened back in February, that Fondag would make it through one launch. Looks like we can be ready to launch again in 1 to 2 months. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, thanks to the FAA.
So clarification there, Fondag is like a very specific kind of concrete that should be able to like withstand the force of a huge rocket launch like this. But if you've seen any of the pictures of what the launch pad looks like after this launch,
just cratered.
It's you see like rebar and it really looks like an explosion went off because it did.
It did. We will be following this, of course, because Starship is a really interesting project, as much as I don't like talking about Elon Musk and his stupid decisions lately. But, you know, this thing, the idea is to bring cargo to the moon, bring people to the moon more easily, and eventually, like, use the same technology to get to Mars. And maybe, I don't know. I can't get excited about any of this anymore, which is that's how much like Elon has kind of like his reputation has just kind of soured me on a lot of the things he's building. So that's a shame. In other news, UK regulators announced that they're blocking Microsoft's Activision Blizzard merger over cloud gaming concerns. And this came from the UK's antitrust regulator, the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, which is notable because the CMA is also the regulator that blocked the NVIDIA and ARM acquisition last year. And that was a major failure. That was a major failure for NVIDIA because, our ARM and having ARM's technology would have been a good way for NVIDIA to like be better at low power chips and just to have a lot more technology there. We don't know what's going to be going on with this because Microsoft can still appeal this decision. So this is not done. I believe Microsoft left a comment. Let me see here. There's a statement from Brad Smith, Vice Chair and President at Microsoft. We remain fully committed to this acquisition and will appeal. The CMA's decision rejects a pragmatic path to address competition concerns and discourages technology innovation and investment in the UK. I don't know if pointing to cloud gaming is the thing to really stop this merger. Have you dabbled at all with this stuff, Ben?
No, but as I was getting prepared for this section, I saw that like Microsoft would have a market share between 60 and 70%. Seems like a monopoly to me. Not a lawyer, but seems like a monopoly just from a layman's point of view.
I mean, that's purely based on the success of Game Pass and how many subscribers Game Pass has. I don't know if we have the numbers of like how people would actually, how many people are actually using cloud gaming on Game Pass. I don't know if we can directly compare it to NVIDIA's GeForce Now service and others. I would just guess like, sure, it is the biggest. But what is that portion of customers? Like how many people is this actually affecting? I don't quite know. So this is still all up in the air again. I believe there's a date in July if this deal doesn't actually go through that Microsoft has to pay Activision quite a bit of money. And who knows how long this whole appeal process will take. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. Yep. Yeah.
And the really frustrating thing about this is like, it seems like you have two kind of weird options. The first option is like a near monopoly where everything works pretty smoothly, but you might end up not being able to play games on this thing or that thing, or like Microsoft could arbitrarily take something exclusive and gamers would not be able to appeal very well. But on the other hand, maybe like, 15 or so years ago, you had a lot more variety in terms of where you could get your games, but things were kind of janky.
Things were
So
kind of janky.
do you want a situation where like one company really rules but could arbitrarily take your games away from you? Or do you want to use like 3 or 4 different platforms that are each a little bit janky in their own ways?
I mean, that is ultimately it. I feel like the seamlessness of technology that we all want, there's often a cost to it. The easier something is to use, the more stuff that's available. The bigger a company gets. I feel like we, as a society, we pay a cost for it. And just to remind people, this is a $68.7 billion all cash deal. This is Microsoft just dropping a lot of money to own the company behind Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. And also they own King too, so that would be like Candy Crush under Microsoft. I feel like I'm just wary of that in general. I'm wary of that sort of consolidation. Also because Microsoft has not proven itself to be a great steward to new studios that's brought in or to games lately. Like, I don't know what is going on with the Xbox Series X and S and the recent generation of games, but it is rough. They're just having a lot of trouble. Halo Infinite was delayed for a year, had a troubled launch, is kind of a mess. There aren't really any of the major exclusives people have been waiting for. Did we talk about the Redfall thing where it's not going to be powerful enough? The system can't do performance mode, so Redfall can't be 60 FPS. There's just a lot of bad vibes around Microsoft's gaming stuff right now, and I don't know if they're going to be able to like survive everything attacking this merger too. So,
yeah, and isn't this the point of view that Lena Khan is taking at the FTC? It's like gone are the days that a monopoly is defined by owning, 80% of the market, and it's going toward the idea of you're touching too many things.
Yep.
So you can't have like World of Warcraft and Tony Hawk and
Candy Crush.
Yeah, and Call of Duty too. Like you're just touching a lot of things, and maybe you should drop some of them.
Yep. There are unforeseen consequences to this type of thing, and to me that is my worry as somebody who's covered tech a lot. I mean, I covered when Facebook bought WhatsApp and everything, and to me that kind of killed a lot of the innovation behind WhatsApp and what made it so cool. And then it's just another thing to make Facebook itself more powerful. That maybe that didn't necessarily hurt WhatsApp much, but it made Facebook a more valuable company, and I don't think we actually won as consumers, like in terms of how big Facebook has gotten. So anyway, we'll be keeping an eye on this. Be sure to check out the Engadget story about this. Our headline is called UK Regulators Block Microsoft Activision Blizzard Merger Over Cloud Concerns. It's written by Daniel Cooper. And Dan Cooper, who's been on the podcast, is very, he's in the UK, he's local there, but he also knows a lot about the law side of this stuff. So read his perspective. I think it's really good. For a slightly lighter story, we saw news that Indiana Jones 5, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I don't like that subtitle, will feature a DH Harrison Ford for the first 25 minutes. We saw hints of this in the trailer. I'm not surprised that we'll be seeing a lot of DH Harrison Ford, but 25 minutes does seem like a big chunk. I have to look up the runtime of this movie, but it could easily be a quarter of the actual film. First thoughts, Ben?
Not many. I mean, this is not so strange these days. I mean, we've had de-aged characters in movies before, so.
But not as like the main character for significant chunks of time. I feel like that is a little different, right? It's usually in a few scenes here or there.
I think it's going to depend on like how it actually looks on screen, especially on a very large format screen. I definitely trust the people behind Indiana Jones to like really painstakingly work on this. But, are you going to be able to sell it to me? Also, like,
yeah,
what age is Indy going to be? Is he going to be in his like 30s, or is he going to be in his like 40s or 50s?
I'm thinking about The Irishman, where they definitely, de-aged.
Exactly. That's yes. I was like
was not
racking
great.
my brain trying to come up with an example.
There was a moment where he was like, beating up somebody on the sidewalk, and it looks like an 80-year-old man trying to get in a fight, and not like 40-something, De Niro. The quotes here, James Mangold, the director, who I love, and I think this movie, I think it really has a shot at actually being good because James Mangold is doesn't make bad movies, like straight up.
So
Mangold,
Hari in the chat
yeah,
says, "What was that Will Smith movie again?"
that was Gemini Man,
Yeah,
which also
Gemini
had, yeah, that
Man.
had a big that had a big de-aged
Was
character.
that de-aged and then also like extremely high FPS?
It was all those. It was also a CG recreation of Will Smith, so I don't think it was the same thing. Like, I don't think it was like straight up de-aging tech the way this is. But I talked to Ang Lee about this, and like he said, that character is just all CG. Like that face is CG manipulated, not necessarily going through like an AI generated de-aging tech. Mangold says he would shoot Harrison Ford on Monday. As a 79-year-old playing a 35-year-old. So 35 is the key age there. And he could see dailies by Wednesday where his head was already replaced. So that's pretty quick. Gemini Man, I believe, was like all like manual CG stuff.
That's cool in terms of tech, but I think the most relevant thing is coming back to your example with The Irishman. You're not going to be able to have a 70-something actor embody
Mangold says Harrison Ford had the agility of a young man.
Okay, sure. But like really embody the physicality of someone who like can do everything. Their parts move like they aren't 70-something and maybe have had joint replacements.
Trains and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I cannot wait for this movie. On my movie podcast, the Filmcast, we do a summer movie wager, and Indy 5 is way high up on my list. So I hope it does well. I'm hoping for like a Top Gun Maverick situation. Just people are jonesing for their Jones, and they're gonna want to see Harrison Ford as his like last hurrah as Indiana Jones. Let's move on to some AI updates. Ben, you brought up the story about Snapchat. They saw a spike in 1-star reviews after they launched a feature called My AI, and people are calling for its removal. It just seems like a general thing. Like people are not going to take kindly to some of these features. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Ben?
I mean, one, people don't like having a feature just foisted on them, period. Two, I wanted to like check out the My AI feature on Snapchat, but of course, as soon as you tap on that feature, there's another additional thing that you have to agree to, like sign your rights away a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I don't think that I want to do that. And I saw this article before I tried to play with my AI on my own phone. The thing that really stands out to me is some of the replies to the like announcement tweet that Snapchat did that's embedded in this TechCrunch story. There's one by this Twitter user, Madison Carroll, who, seems just like normal girl from Tennessee. She says this post is so creepy. Absolutely no, do not want it, because she's talking to the My AI feature about, where is the closest gas station. The My AI says the closest gas station to you is, a Shell 5.5 miles away. She says, I have my Snapchat hidden from maps. And My AI says, I apologize for the confusion. Unfortunately, I don't have access to your location since you have hidden. Excuse me? So it's not even smart at being duplicitous.
This is like an AI assistant type of thing, too.
Yes,
right?
It's an AI assistant thing, and I'm not sure what people are on Snapchat would be looking for in terms of an AI assistant.
Okay. Expect a lot of like user rejection of these features. I feel like this is not going to be a new thing. And just to follow up, also an AI update, to follow up to the story we talked about, was it last week or the week before, about the fake Drake and the Weeknd AI, song. Grimes, again, we cannot get out of Elon Musk's orbit. The music artist Grimes announced on Twitter this week that she says, I'll split 50% royalties on any successful AI-generated song that uses my voice. Same deal as I would with any artist I collab with. Feel free to use my voice without penalty. I have no label and no legal bindings. So this is a contract, this tweet. It's, or at least like this is like full use for people to play with her voice. What are your, like, you are more on the audio side of things, Ben, and I'm sure you're looking a lot at AI audio stuff. What do you think of this? Is this interesting, or is this maybe misguided from her?
I think it's kind of neato, just like her willingness to play ball. I think that it could end up being kind of creepy or not be as successful as immediately as she might hope. Grimes, even before she was involved with, South African Techno Man, was always like a really early adopter onto things. She made a bunch of money on NFTs.
Yeah.
And it gets back to the thing that I was saying last week or a couple of weeks ago. I think it was last week when we were talking about Drake and the Weeknd, where something that happens in the music industry very often is a songwriter will come to a big label and say, I think I have a really good song for, this huge artist and this huge artist. And the A&R person, a gatekeeper who might be able to send that song to the huge artists, might say, you know what, I don't hear it, as just a way of like brushing that person aside. That songwriter can now make a mock-up. And so it's not like you quote unquote can't hear it. Like you absolutely can. The question is whether or not the technology is up to snuff. Because Heart on My Sleeve, the Drake and Weeknd AI track, sounds notably good. There are a lot of other similar things.
Yeah.
Similar like
if you look on TikTok, like there was a straight up like just a whole bunch of AI music floating around. I'm thinking like it seems like either The Weeknd or Michael Jackson. Honestly, The Weeknd sounds a lot like Michael Jackson in certain points.
That's his whole deal.
That's his whole deal. But Michael Jackson's voice feels like the defining voice of AI music. Like people are just doing everything with it and they're getting really good.
Which is funny because remember when we thought that like not AI, when we thought that holograms were going to be like the next frontier in live music. There was like a good 6 or 8 months when people were like, we can resurrect all your favorite artists.
That could still be true. To be honest, like we tie all these things together. So like we were disappointed with Siri, we're disappointed with Google Assistant. Maybe we're disappointed with holograms because those were all like basically CG creations and like very stiff and recorded. But if you could have a live hologram and you send it a text string and just be like, give me your rendition of a certain song, it just does it. Like we're getting to an interesting point. And then I wonder about like how do you manage basically controlling somebody's virtual image completely, Yeah.
And actually we have a really good comment from Darren N in the YouTube chat that says could be disastrous if they bring up her relationship problems with Elon in the AI songs.
They have another kid. She says their relationship is fluid, so I don't know. The new kid is called Exadark Sidereal.
Oh, good
Sidereal.
God.
Don't forget that. That was like in March last year they announced that.
Well, yeah, and that was actually with a surrogate. So don't know how much that matters. But like that's actually a really good like door to another idea of like, okay, if the song is really good, that will get away from you way faster than you intend it to.
For sure.
So if it has some like shade on a personal relationship that you would rather not blow up for everyone
you have
to
no control.
See, or it could be like a salacious rumor or something. But if the salacious rumor is encapsulated in a song that slaps, that's going to get away from you way faster than you want. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to sue them, or are you going to just take your 50% cut? Is it going to end up on TV commercials? There are so many different possibilities here.
Oh man, we will be following all of this. It's all making my head hurt, but I do wonder like you were just like letting people use your image and you basically give up entire control. And maybe Grimes seems like the sort of person that's just like, hey, we'll live and let live and let's see what happens with this stuff. If you see any good AI voices or AI created music, please share it with us. Podcast Engadget.com. Let's move on to what we're working on. I've been talking about the Razer Blade 16 for the past couple of weeks, and my review of that is going up either today or tomorrow, sometime this week. And I just talked about it with Sam last week. I like it more than he liked the Blade 18, mainly because it has this cool dual mode display. And I just want to correct something I said last week too. I said the display was 1440p and 1080. It's actually 4K and 1080. I was thinking of something else entirely. There is a separate 1440p model of the Blade 16, but it doesn't do any dual mode stuff. I did a bunch of gaming on this thing. It is really cool to have a computer that basically has a 4K screen that runs natively, and then you reboot it, and Asus has this technology where that can turn that 4K panel effectively into a 1080p panel. So it's 4K by default, but when you go into 1080p mode, it basically acts and looks as clear as a 1080p panel, and that goes up to 240 hertz as 1080p. In 4K, it's 120 hertz. It's really cool tech. I think some gamers will be into it, but it is just so expensive. It is $3,300 if you want this dual mode technology, and that's $3,300 with an RTX 4070. And that is just way too much money for a 4070 series laptop. So very cool experiment. Maybe for some people, they will want to experiment with this sort of thing, especially if they have the money. But if you're listening to this and you want a good deal, please look at any of our other like laptop reviews. Like look at the the Asus Zephyrus G14 or something, which is a 1440p laptop and is easily going to be $1,000 less than the dual mode version of this. So it's cool, but not cool enough. And I think most people would be better off with the Blade 15. Check out my review, and the video is going to be going up soon. And let's move on to pop culture picks. Ben, I didn't ask you, but is there anything you want to shout out before I talk about my thing?
Why don't you go first?
Yeah. I will talk about my thing that I've been addicted to lately, and that is the new Netflix series, The Diplomat. And this show rules. This show rules if you like The West Wing, if you like Homeland, if you like good banter and really strongly written characters. It's created by Deborah Kahn, who worked on both of those shows, by the way. And it stars Kerry Russell as a diplomat in the U.S. in the U.S. system, who is sent to London to be the chief UK diplomat. She doesn't really want it. She sees it as a ceremonial position, but the series begins with an attack on on a British tanker. And America just needs to go there and help a strong ally out. Kerry Russell is this person who wants to be a more substantive diplomat, somebody who's actually doing real, international diplomacy and not just like she doesn't want to be there for photo shoots and stuff. And it's just really compelling. It's basically a lot of people in conversations, people in boardrooms and meeting rooms trying to talk down the British government from, attacking a country that they think could be at fault or just dealing with this in a better way. There's a lot of intrigue. There are a lot of twists. This is one of those shows where like the final 5 minutes really like hook you in to watch the next thing because the twists are really good. It also co-stars Rufus Sewell, who I've loved in everything. Rufus Sewell in Dark City. He's very dashing. He's very charming, but he is sort of like the opposite kind of character, where Kerry Russell's character is very much she is really smart. She is hyper competent. She is really good at what she does, but she also is very good about doing things the proper way. And Rufus Sewell is like the Joker of diplomats. He is just like an agent of chaos, and seeing him have fun, seeing their relationship develop, because it's a close relationship, but she also doesn't want to stay with him, for too long. It's really interesting. I think everybody is just really good. This show is 8 episodes on Netflix, and I am almost done. I'm loving it. It is so addictive. If you liked Homeland, if you like The West Wing, check out The Diplomat. Ben, anything you want to talk about?
Cool. So a short walk to my pick. Last week, I was in Manhattan visiting a friend. Usually don't go to Manhattan during the week, but, I just wanted to see my friend's new apartment that he bought, and we talked about radio stuff. And so here I was, like, in Manhattan by myself, kind of hungry.
The dream.
Don't usually have dinner alone. And I knew that I wanted to go to like this one bar that a few friends and I had gone to in the past, and I don't know, see if I could strike up a conversation with someone I didn't know. But first, God, I needed some food. So that bar was right near this little micro neighborhood called Dime Square.
If you don't know anything about Dime Square to this podcast,
if you don't know anything about Dime Square, good, keep it that way. If you need a very shorthand idea of why this is relevant, just think about Dime Square as like, what people were talking about in terms of like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, circa 2007 or 2008.
If it was a block big, basically. Yeah.
But actually, the funny thing about this like little area is that it wouldn't exist if it weren't for like the COVID like open streets sort of thing. So anyway, like lots of cool, big quote unquote people there. I wanted to go to Dimes, the restaurant at the center of it all.
Yeah.
I was hoping that I was going to hear like, some Instagram famous people talking about, getting brand deals or somebody complaining about their trust fund. I'm looking around the restaurant and I am thinking like, I hope I get sat next to that person. I hope I get sat next to that person. I hope I don't get sat next to that one guy who seems like he's the oldest person in the room. That's probably not going to be a fun conversation to overhear while I eat dinner alone. I end up getting sat next to that white-haired man. He looks at me out of the corner of his eye, and I'm like, oh my God, that's David Byrne. I am an arm's length away from the singer of the Talking Heads.
I was just thinking about the tweet. Like somebody was playing like, what if you go to karaoke and somebody's doing Prince and it's David Byrne? And there's video of that going out.
Yeah, that video resurfaced recently, and it's really funny that it happened just around now.
Did you say anything to Mr. David Byrne?
No, I didn't say anything to Mr. David Byrne because that is violating the rules of New York City.
You have to let him engage. You have to let him open up first.
But also like just let people be normal people. There are so many people in close quarters in New York City.
What was David Byrne eating? What was the scenario, Ben?
Okay, so he was there with like, some female companion. I'm not going to suppose who that person is, but they were having a relatively mundane conversation about,
his voice is so distinct too. Like you wouldn't even need to see him to know David Byrne is in the room with you. So,
absolutely. I mean, I wasn't sure if it was him or just someone who looked like him, because there are a lot of very stylish, completely white-haired men in New York City.
All the men who were cool in the 80s and 90s are still down there. They're still living in New York.
Yeah, absolutely, because they like claimed squatters' rights on live workspaces in Soho or something. Okay. So yeah, I confirmed that it was David Byrne. Heard his voice. I was like, that can't not be him.
He shouted out loud, "How did I get here?" Yeah.
And then I talked with the server after he left, and the server was like, "Do you know who that was?" And I was like, "Was that David Byrne?" So this is actually a long way of getting to mentioning that just yesterday, this would be Wednesday, April 26th, I do work on a bunch of different podcasts. One of the podcasts I work on is a like beauty industry thing. We did an interview with the founders of Good Die Young. Among them, Hayley Williams. Love Hayley Williams, love Paramore. This is a long way of getting to the fact that you should be listening to the album This Is Why by Paramore, because there is a really clear link between the Talking Heads and this new Paramore album. I was able to mention that to Hayley herself, and she really appreciated it.
Aw. That's very nice. Did you get to see American Utopia at any point, Ben?
I didn't get to see American Utopia.
That's one of those things. It was playing before it was there, before the pandemic. It was like, I'm gonna go see David Byrne, on Broadway, and never happened. Anyway, folks, David Byrne, cool guy. Keep more cool people in the world. I love to see him. Anything else you want to add, Ben?
Nope.
All right. All right. That was very good. I like that story. I like story time with Ben. Let me just pull up our show notes here. And sit tight, chat. We will do some Q&A with you afterwards. That's it for the show this week, folks. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our very own managing editor Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Ellman. You can find me online at Devindra on Twitter, at Devindra at Mastodon.social, at the Elephant site. Sam Rutherford's on Twitter too. Just search him there. And Ben, where can we find you?
I nominally have a Twitter account. It's at Hey Bellman, and I think that my last tweet that I did in October is really fun, so go look at that.
Email us at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts. Thanks, folks. We're out. Okay. Hello, live stream. I hope you enjoyed that tangent. That was good. I do like that. I love it good. Like you've run into somebody really cool in New York, and you just leave them alone. But
I'm gonna be writing that famous person story for a good another 3 months or so.
This is very cool. I remember I used to work in Soho. There was a co-working space there, and apparently the cafe I went to was like right next door to David Bowie's apartment. I was
Oh,
like,
cool.
every day I would have lunch. I'd be like, "Where's David Bowie?
Yeah, where's Bowie?
Where's Bowie?"
I'll be very happy with an Amon sighting, but give me Bowie.
Yeah, I had friends who were in Gowanus, and Patrick Stewart had bought an apartment there, I believe, and they would just see him at their wine store.
Oh my God.
Love New York.
Actually, back when who is it? Thomas Middleditch was doing a lot more press stuff. He told this really great story about how he used to do drunk Shakespeare, and that Patrick Stewart also did drunk Shakespeare with him because he's a Shakespearean actor. And that, like, he was at a party. Middleditch was at a party. And like didn't know anyone was feeling awkward, and apparently Patrick Stewart was like, "Thomas, thank God you're here. We're going to hang out all night."
That's what you want to hear.
Believe what that would feel like?
Yep. Oh man, that's cool. Patrick Stewart also good in the show Extras. They also have him be really funny in that show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go back in the chat. So chat, I apologize. Usually I'm the one like looking at things, but I couldn't look at things and be a talker at the same time. So if you want to resurface some of the stuff that you mentioned in the previous sections, just to see like what our
Sister Satan, who followed me on Mastodon. So thank you, Sister Satan. People are on Mastodon. Whoa. It's a vibrant. There are dozens of us. It's a vibrant
dozens of us. Scores.
Sister Satan says, "I always like Grimes, proud to be a Grimes fan. I like Grimes too. The whole Grimes and like Elon thing like kind of soured me on her, so yeah,
it's really interesting to see like people who are more music fans than tech fans also say that they feel like Grimes did a heel turn, kind of became like a villain, but like I don't know. We'll see.
About villain. It's more like you're just aligning yourself with the villain. Like basically you're like, oh yeah, well yeah. The person who wants to have a lot of kids to make elites the future of humanity.
Well, yeah, okay,
actively
but then
taking part in that project. So,
I mean, there's that big question of like, would you consider like Coco Chanel a bad guy, or was she just aligned with the bad guys?
Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing. If you're having kids with the bad guys, I don't know. Mark Dell says his dad was casually mentioning how his dad once met Bob Hoskins. Love Bob Hoskins. And they got to chatting, for sure.
So Y says, how about new movies and no more sequels, prequels / spin-off BS? Unlikely, although I really wonder what Everything Everywhere is going to do to the movie industry, because that was a wildly unique intellectual property.
We are seeing things. There's a movie I talked about, Polite Society, which is in theaters now. Go check it out. But the one that's about British Pakistani teenagers and has like Everything Everywhere vibes of like fantasy sequences and fight sequences. Like maybe it's not a success is the thing, but maybe we see more of these types of movies.
Well, yeah. I'm a little bit afraid that what Hollywood is going to learn is let's just do maximalism. Maximalism only worked in Everything Everywhere because of that specific idea. It wasn't maximalism that people liked. They do.
Yeah.
It was the fact that this was a completely new idea that was not tied to any existing franchise.
I mean, they are the directors behind the Turn Down for What video. The craziness of that video just presages everything you saw in Everything Everywhere, right? So
yeah, actually, my real pick should have been that a radio coworker of mine did kind of like imagine Song Exploder, but kind of like Video Exploder. Did an interview with Daniels years ago, like 2017.
Maybe that was the video I saw where they talked about the video. Yeah.
And yeah, they did a really cool breakdown of all of the different stuff that went into making that video.
It was a fun video. Turn Down for What?
I liked the video and the song significantly more
I think
after seeing that breakdown.
Worse. Yeah, the song got overplayed to the point where I kind of hate it. People are pointing out R.I.P. Jerry Springer. He just announced that he passed away.
He did.
Yeah, he did. For reals.
Also, strangely, former mayor of Cincinnati. Always surprised by that.
Always weird. That is the first in the Yahoo or the Variety news. The first thing is former Cincinnati news anchor and mayor. So there you go. I grew up in the Jerry Springer verse, and I feel like that led to a lot of reality TV and maybe not so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
CF542 says, I would like to be de-aged for an hour or so myself.
You probably can. Don't worry. I mean, if you go,
Well,
if you
yeah,
go
but
to
it's
TikTok
not like
right
your
now,
body it's not like your body gets
your
de-aged.
body doesn't. But if
And
you go
that's
to
what
TikTok,
we were talking about.
Look at the TikTok teenage filter and just seeing people be like, "Oh, I look younger." I don't think people actually look like they actually did as teenagers, but it smooths out your face and wrinkles, and people are like, "Oh, it's a whole new me." Sister Satan says, "I hope Sherlin's okay." She's fine. She's just busy.
Yeah,
So
Bryant Mitchell mentioned during the SpaceX segment that Elon was like, "Screw safety, I have money." And that just reminds me of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series, because that's one of the things that the rich guy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, I mean, that's his catchphrase in the Abridged series. We are so far away from the golden age of Abridged series on YouTube these days. And Julio, video producer, says that he worked with Shakira once. Cool.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, that movie. There was a movie? There was a Shakira movie? Oh. Julio hated everything everywhere all at once, so please direct your hate to Julio. Find him on Twitter. Okay, as we round out, Daniel Diaz says, sharing some important news. Last Saturday, my first baby boy, Santiago, was born. Congrats, Daniel Diaz. I'll make sure he gets his weekly dose of the podcast. Yes, you will be listening to a lot of podcasts. In fact, every potential parents, invest in a good pair of AirPods, because when you're holding a kid to sleep and trapped with baby stuff, you need podcasts.
I have back when Twitter worked again, I had a Twitter friend who said that he was trying to get his baby to sleep, and in his sleep-deprived state, all he could remember is the Sufjan Stevens song about John Wayne Gacy. So he was singing that to his baby.
Yeah. I would just
really banking on that infantile amnesia.
Yeah. I don't remember songs, so I would just pick something I like and like sing it as a lullaby. So I definitely did Karma Police. I definitely did. And then there was the LCD Sound System song that's basically "Oh Baby," which is perfect. It's actually a very perfect little lullaby. Okay. Mark Dell says, make sure your new kid leaves a review on iTunes.
Yeah,
true,
seriously.
Daniel Diaz, and all of your offspring. If everybody, logs on with their iTunes accounts and gives us a good review, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, but seriously, congrats, Daniel.
Congrats.
I hope that you get to sleep.
Yep. It is rough. My baby boy, who turned a year old last month, is finally sleeping on his own. And oh my God.
Cool.
My God, that just makes all the difference. So
yeah, great.
That's great.
Excellent.
That's great. I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're done. So thank you, everybody, for sticking around. The stream comes to you via our video team, which is just Julio Barrientos this week.
It's Julio with like 4 arms right now. And like 5 computers.
He's ascended. He's got like 4 arms and a galaxy brain.
Bodhisattva version. Julio,
yeah, seriously. So just Julio Barrientos, but we'll shout out Luke Brooks because he usually helps. And if you've stuck around this long, you know that we live in a world of algorithms better than the average person because you're a tech enthusiast. So rate us 5 stars on iTunes, rate us 5 stars on Google Podcasts, help people find us. Help the algorithm.
Subscribe too. Like if you watch this live stream, actually subscribe. That helps.
Yeah, actually, yes. I forgot to do that part of this little outro, but if you've watched this live stream, you owe us a download. Just go to your favorite podcatcher, download it, and whatever you do with it, just leave it on silent. Remember that Wolfpack album that was just silence that they used to like get money from Spotify? Anyway, we'll see you next week.
Later, folks.